Hello and welcome to the Amusing Panda live stream, your musing and amusing home for all things War Machine. It's me, Alex Cosma, this week. Sadly, we are without John Damaris, but I am joined by the ever indefatigable Chris. Chris, welcome to the show. You ready to talk some WTC?
Absolutely, Cosma. Can't wait. I've been looking forward to this episode for weeks.
yeah, it's kind of become the big hype since lists were revealed, and boy, are there some strange ones in there.
Oh yeah. We got a couple of doozies to talk about.
Mm-hmm. And joining us as well to talk WTC, we have Ryan. Let's get Ryan in here.
Oh, hi.
Hello there.
Hey,
Thanks
Ryan.
for having me. What's up, guys?
Long time no see. Feel like I haven't spoken to you in years.
It's been forever and a half.
Forever and a half, or maybe 7 minutes since backstage.
That too. 2 days.
Something like that. Yeah,
It is a treat for me to introduce Ryan, because Ryan is on the Blightbringers podcast, as many of you will know. But Ryan is also a past teammate of mine.
It's true.
Yep. So we did WTC 2023 in Copenhagen.
Yeah.
Yep. And that was playing on the team captain by Cody DeMunn. It was you, me, Michael, and Chris, as well as Cody.
Yep.
Yeah, man, talk about a great team. It was a really, really awesome group of guys. Mostly all out in the Buffalo area, and then I get to be the one foreigner on the team. But it was a ton of fun and great preseason prep with that team.
You're like an honorary Buffalonian now. It's fine.
No, yeah, at this point, 2 Buffalo teams. I'm starting to get there. But yeah, why don't you tell us a bit about your history with the game and some of your accomplishments and what you're about?
Oh, sure. So I've been playing for a little over 10 years. I started in Mark II right before funnily enough, Blightbringer Colossal came out. That was like within 2 months of me starting. I've always played in the Buffalo area, fairly competitive area forever and a half now.
Yeah, it's a really sharp meta out there.
Yeah, East Coast, West Coast.
Mm-hmm.
Travel around. I'm basically haunted every East Coast convention, from Bokur to Captain Con. Going out to Lock and Load this year, which will be my first excursion out that direction, so that'll be a good time. And basically mainlined Legion for almost a decade.
Mm-hmm.
Got to go to WTC in 2023. That was great. And when Mark IV dropped, I jumped onto Chimera as a spiritual successor, and now I'm dabbling in Bears the faction. So we're getting a little bit of everything.
Nice. Yeah, we've had parsing through the lists, I I noticed some interesting things about Chimera, which I'll be curious to get your take on. Them being the top represented faction, they're sort of the elephant in the room right now.
Yeah, it's still surprising, honestly. I expected top 3. I didn't expect 1.
Yeah, and won by won by a margin of 2 players, which is quite impressive. But also on the note of Lock and Load, not only do we get hype for the WTC coming up in a few weeks, but we also have the first dusted off, refurbished, and running again Lock and Load happening at St. Louis coming up in just a month. So this is going to be taking place at Warfare Weekend, longtime home of the War Machine Invitationals, so the big U.S. circuit. And just last week, they finally posted the Iron Gauntlet standings. So the Premier Invitational this year has points totals now up and public. You no longer have to play a guessing game if you've been doing well on the circuit this year. And even if you're not showing up, there is still the opportunity to participate in the biggest and perhaps mistakenly only second most prestigious War Machine tournament, which is the last chance qualifier.
That's a nasty one. That's a meat grinder of a tournament.
Yeah. They just throw you into that thing and say, like, be prepared to be here for the next 16 hours if you do good.
The last LCQ I knew of, Anthony Gibbs, the player from way back in Mark III, he ran the gauntlet through the LCQ, won with Sloan, and then I think he got 2 hours of sleep before the Masters event the next day because it was an 8-round event.
Nice.
It was brutal.
You say that like it's a bad thing.
He had the time of his life. I was watching from my couch. I was having a great time too. Like, I wasn't there.
Everybody's going to these 3-and-out tournaments, and I'm just sitting here like, go back to 8-round days. Let's go.
Bring it on, baby.
Ryan, you're still young enough to actually have that kind of vitality in you.
I'm in my mid-30s now. I just drink enough that it doesn't bother me. It's fine.
You get loosened up for the games and everything.
Exactly.
There's going to be a lot of that at the lock and load.
Oh, yeah.
So if you out there in audience land are not registered, do not have a ticket yet, like, get yourself one. You know, I was telling a friend of mine, Chase from Oregon, this is his first year, and he's talking about, like, events are filling up fast. You know, you got to get in them if you want them. And I'm like, if I show up and just have 4 days hanging out with the people who are going to be there, it'll be a great weekend.
Yeah. And SFG just released their thing for the swag that's going to be available. So they've got the Sufflix shirt, which looks really cool. A couple lock and load branded other things, but also like the first 200 people get swag bags, I guess. And I'm not going to say who I asked the question to because I don't want them to get inundated with DMs, but I asked specifically if it was like total Warfare weekend tickets or specifically like the lock and load add-ons, and was told it's specifically the 3-day or 4-day lock and load add-on, and they haven't hit the 200 yet. So you can go and probably still get a swag bag, which seems like it's going to be full of neat stuff. So, I mean,
from their
that might spice it up for somebody.
It's a custom bag for lock and load. It's a cool lanyard. I know that there's a special token dropping a little bit of seasoning for the Kithgard lovers out there. There's going to be a trapdoor token that's available. It won't be available on the website because, as Rich so kindly said on the Discord earlier today, it is a token, not a model. And so they're following different rules. Take that for whatever you will.
And to JRV, does it have a narrative event as well? I believe it does.
Yes, it does. It also has a team event, if that's more your style.
So for everyone watching, and welcome, chat. Thank you guys for jumping in. For everyone watching, run, do not walk to get yourself lock and load tickets. It's going to be a great year.
Yeah, it is.
In other news this week, I'll keep it. Oh, we got Stephen Williams. Lock and load sounds like it is going to be a lot of fun. I am hoping to make it next year or the year after. Yeah, it's going to be a blast. If you've never been to one of these before, so it's currently attached to the Warfare Weekend Con, which is the successor to Ye Olde War Machine Weekend. It is a big venue in St. Louis, Missouri. So, you know, if you're going out for food, you're going out for barbecue. It's, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of con attendees. You know, if you've ever done a big War Machine tournament, you know, odds are you're going to see some of the people that you had like maybe the chillest or most intense game of your life against there in, you know, an unbelievable social setting. Board games, side games, vendors, everything absolutely off the chain. Like community. Like it is a great place to go and put in quality time with the people who love and share your hobby.
Sounds like a blast. Hey, hopefully I can make it next year. This year didn't shake out, but
that's too bad.
Yeah, I would have loved to.
Charles,
that's a new one.
John?
He's ducking you again, my friend. I'm sorry about that. But we're all looking forward to seeing your Orgoth hit the table there. Glad we were able to bully you into into some more work.
Oh, hell yeah. I used to
JB,
run
Nick,
Extreme Colossal Wrestling.
That
Oh,
sounds so on brand for you. Oh my god. Extreme Colossal Wrestling. He did it dressed up as Macho Man. Yeah, that's
Hell yeah.
Yeah. But moving on to the other news, which I will keep very brief. One, because I don't want to talk too much, and two, because WTC is a massive, massive topic. Las Vegas Open was this past weekend. I was lucky enough to get to attend. We had 3 days of games. Personally, wound up going 7-2, and in the Masters, placing fourth. And then a massive congratulations to Brandon Owens for winning the whole thing, perhaps his hajillionth qualifier this year with Gravediggers. And the finals was Brandon versus Sean Hopkins. So both WTC players. Sean was running a pair of Eviscerus and Kythos. So final game came down. I believe it was Jake's Kythos, but I don't remember offhand.
Both top tier guys. So
yeah. And massive shout out to Tyson Coach for putting together the whole thing. The preeminent West Coast tournament organizer, Matt Zellis, was also there judging for the tournament. Past WTC teammate of mine, and there the same year you and I went, Ryan.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So those guys did fantastic work. It's also for the first time not a casino venue, which is, believe it or not, a massive upgrade. Casinos are very uptight.
Can't imagine why. That doesn't make sense. What are you talking about?
Yeah, but that's we'll cut it there for Lock and Load. Ryan Chiraboga also attended, friend of the show. So if you check out his Meta Monday, he also talks about LVO on his channel Spell Rack. But any other shout outs or announcements at the top of the show for you guys?
None for me right now.
Yeah, I got nothing.
All right. Well, then let us dive into the WTC. So, taking place in Sweden, I think WTC at the town it's happening in Sweden this year, like for a few days, meaningfully augments the population of the town it's in.
Oh yeah. Aren't they in a spa this year?
Huh?
Are they in a spa this year? I think they are.
Something like that. Yeah, it's a small rural resort town.
I mean, not a bad place to get it. If I learned anything from European travel, it was fly over the day you get there, go to a spa, get a massage. Just first day immediately, you will feel so much better from the air travel.
Yeah, that sounds delightful.
Oh, it was amazing.
I'm doing that next time I travel over there.
I made so many good decisions the first day.
Downhill from there, right?
Yeah, basically.
Sweet.
So let's start by diving into the faction breakdown. So this year's WTC, 32 teams, going to be a 5-round event. And looking at factions, we are being served up with Chimera in the #1 spot, which is, I mean, given the past year or so and some of the travails of the factions, a bit of a surprise. Ryan, what's your first blush reaction here?
So first reaction, surprising. Like I said, I kind of expected top 3. I wasn't expecting #1. But thinking about it, we have a couple very good casters right now. There's a couple duds, but there's always a couple duds. But there's a lot of different playstyle in there, and the trike is just so strong right now that it's hard to find weaknesses in a well-built pair. And when you look at a team environment where you can take those ones that you really don't want to see and just hard dodge them if you need to, it just makes it that much stronger. So I think Chimera overall is in a good position for an environment like this, and it shows in the numbers.
Yeah. I didn't assemble a count in advance, but just perusing through the list, because I specifically wanted to do some digging on Chimera. I think you will see represented in there most of the caster stable. Obviously the cadre guy whose name is failing
Valix.
me. Yeah. I don't recall seeing a Valix list in there.
There's
But
one.
there is one. Okay,
He showed
there
up
we go.
once. Lilith, who is the other kind of mostly disliked, I think showed up twice. And I think everybody else has at least 2 showings.
Yeah. Kirax, Shyrus, Rasik, and
Nixian.
Nixian. Yeah, they're all kind of competitive staples. And one thing that's interesting about a team environment that you maybe wouldn't necessarily see everywhere else is so there's a matchmaking game that goes on in order to settle matches between these 5 players. So one team will put up a player. We're going to put forward Ryan, and the other team will respond and say, okay, here's Alex and Chris, pick between these 2 matchups. And you go back and forth until everyone is settled. So Ryan, you pick to play Chris. I stay on the field. The other team puts up 2 players, and you just go until everybody has matchups scheduled. One thing about picking your matchups is, teams will rate in advance what they're, oh, this is good for me, this is bad for me, and will make strategies on how to get players out of losses. The tendency in a team environment is, at least in my experience, you tend to skew toward even games. You're not necessarily delivering people into slam dunks because your opponent has the ability to withhold a player and keep them out of trouble.
Yeah, the opposing team would need to have a couple of weaknesses to you in order for you to get that cherry matchup. It's pretty unlikely to get, but the counterpoint is that I don't ever want to play against Cosma, so I don't have to.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. So one of the tendencies in this, in list building and list strategy, is because most of your matchups will tend toward even. Your off list goes from having to cover your weaknesses and develop a really dynamic pair, as in a singleton event, to often being like a really specific or narrowly tailored specialist, either to pull a teammate's bacon out of the fire by cornering one of their bad matchups earlier in the process, or, as is probably the most reliable, just running an insane assassination strategy. Sometimes, like, all your pre-planning fails and somebody has to be delivered into a red matchup. It's often worth its weight in gold to have an army that can take that bad matchup and flip it into a W by just killing people.
Yep. I think there's a third version of an off list there, though, and it is usually a silver bullet for one thing in particular, if not to necessarily save a teammate, to make it so the other person does not want to drop that.
Right. Yeah, because you can afford to have an ultra specialist, to scare off the thing that scares off your generalist, and it's not like in a singleton tournament, where that doesn't necessarily create a well-rounded pair. You're not worried about having a well-rounded pair.
Yeah, Jay Beatnick hit just on it. The example he gave was like Butcher 1, tons of jacks. A skew, like you're talking about a skew. And you will see skews as an off list, definitely in this kind of environment. They're very strong in it too, because it can put your thumb on the scale when we want to play the game of list chicken. Suddenly, your opponent really doesn't want to play list chicken when your other list could go turbo bad for them.
Yeah.
So you get to kind of predict what they're going to drop.
You look at some of the history of like the skews like that, and how often did you see like a triple colossal list or something like that? Something that would normally never get played, but suddenly when it's in the pair, you're looking at it going, look, I can beat, Butcher 1. I can do that. But if he drops a Rusk, I am absolutely wrecked here. So I guess I have to drop this thing that's going to be slightly better into both, just in case.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so I mean, we've highlighted some lists to go into, and that is going to be a standout in here is like you, the audience, if you're not familiar with how this dynamic goes, are going to see some strange things that you would say to yourself, that wouldn't fly in my local meta. Is like the truth is it doesn't fly in any other meta.
Yeah.
Um,
It's a
yeah, go
point
ahead, Chris.
that Ryan and I made over the weekend too. It's important when you're looking at these lists to remember that they are curated. You know, they're targeting matchups, they're targeting teams, they're targeting in some cases players,
Mhm.
armies, factions, what have you. This isn't something that you're going to see at a Masters qualifier, an LCQ, nothing like that. So when you're looking at it, going, "Oh well, this is what all the best players are taking," take that with a grain of salt. They are taking this, but there's a reason, and maybe it's not going to generally win a steamroll, even like a local steamroller. It may not be what you think it is.
Yeah, especially for off lists. Main lists, you will probably see those if you can
Mhm.
kind of figure out what's more likely to see. So, like for Chimera, out of 18 players, I think 17 are running Shearus. It's a pretty safe bet that you could look at that Shearus list and say, somebody's going to run something similar to this no matter where I go.
Mhm.
But the off list is going to be the one where it's like, as a pair, this doesn't make necessarily sense, and it probably has a couple of very, very glaring weaknesses if you know how to look at it.
Right. Yeah, and this will often, if you have a WTC player in your, greater extended meta, you'll sometimes oh yeah, we'll be coming to dark operations and the legacy factions in just a minute, advanced maneuvers. One of the weird things you will see is like what I ran into going to Mox Bellevue, when I ran into Luke Rowan in round 3 of that tournament. He's running Gravediggers, and I believe it was Vargas and McCoy. And he said, "Look, my mission for this tournament, like, I'm pretty sure my primary list is locked down. My job here at this tournament is to just stress test McCoy. Just play all McCoy all the time. Like, this is a matchup where I would probably drop, my other list, but you're getting McCoy."
Mm-hmm.
So there's a bit of you can occasionally run into the metagame distortion in regular tournaments that the WTC exerts.
Yep.
But pivoting from that, one thing I noticed that's very, very odd in these faction ratings or faction participation rates is Dusk is sitting at suckers bet
16.
Maybe for the other side. All I'm saying. I think Austrian Legacy is hard. I'm calling it now. I think so. I can't wait to see these guys just table people.
It's gonna be so fun to see how they do, only because so many people are going to just look at this and go, do I stress test games into like the one-off? No, I'm going to focus on Chimera. I'm going to focus on Dusk. I'm going to focus on Storm Legion, Gravediggers, and that's where I'm going to get my reps in because that's what I'm most likely to see. And these guys are going to swoop in with the ultimate dark horse and be like, yeah, you kind of vaguely remember what Crucible Guard does. How well? Let's find out.
And the best part is one team every round guaranteed has to play into this nonsense. I love it. It's so great. Every round guaranteed there's one team that's going to be going, oh crap.
Yep.
Wait, so there's an interesting thing. A lot of people were surprised to see Dusk at number 2. I was, when lists first went live, and then I spent some time thinking about it. And then I was talking to Brandon at LVO. There were 3 Chimera players at LVO. Like both Brandon and I got I think I got 4 Chimera games and he got at least 3. Chimera is, they've had hard times in the past, but I think since the advent of the Trichomerax, they're actually driving a lot of the metagame right now. And in conversation afterward, it really did sink in for me why we're seeing faction ratings like this. So nobody should be any stranger to how this beast wants to operate. Space Arm 19 has rapid healing 50 boxes. You drop Dragon's Blood on it. It's super tough. Speed 6, melee range 3. Chimera has Hunter's Mark on a stick.
Yep.
So in every list where you see a trike, you are going to see it threat 14 inches minimum. Kirax has Alpha Hunter to upgrade it to 16 inches. Shiris, who's another common home for it, has access to her feet, which prevents charges, lets you just drag that trike a little more forward and say your entire army has to retreat or it's getting charged by this thing. And it's very difficult to take down. Even if a Trichimerax does a full send against your army, you need a lot of damage on tap to bring it down after it does that.
I don't think I've ever killed it in one of my games. I have beaten lists that have it, but I don't think I've killed it.
I don't know if I've just gotten lucky, but I think in the mirror, I have killed it every time. And since I started Old Umbre, I should be putting 5 little snakeheads on one of my primeval bases because it goes, I'm like, okay, I'm going to load up and have 2 of these things to go in, and one is always just the hero, and one rounds it itself, and I'm like, oh, I guess I don't need the second one. Okay.
My last game into one, I was texting Joe about this. I told him I sent 2 fully loaded tyrants with cycling red line free charges into the trike. And he's like, yeah, so how did that do? And I said, I left it alive in 35. And he went, he said, how good was the rapid healing? I said, oh, he rolled nothing but once. He rolled terrible. And he's like, how bad were your dice? And I said, yes, so it was war table.
Yeah, that's the question.
And yeah, dude, it was awful. I've never killed it, but I actually won that game because I only ever engage with it at the very end if I absolutely have to. I hate it. And I'm just like, it's a lot of effort. It's stupid. It centralizes my army for retaliation. I will go pick other points on the board to win and just feed it stuff to keep it busy.
Right. Well, that was originally the weakness of the Trichimerax is you didn't always have to kill it. Because it's so expensive and because the cost point on units, solos, Vipex, etc. in Chimera tends to get a little bit awkward, at least earlier on in this year. One thing you would see is this Colossal, for as powerful as it is, essentially introduces list composition problems into your army where it becomes very small and very easy to delete everything except for the Trichimerax, and it can't be everywhere on scenario, and you can feed one Colossal, models almost indefinitely. Now, one takeaway from these army lists, and I saw this at Vegas, and I saw it again perusing for LVO, is that those composition problems seem to have been eliminated. Like the Chimera community has aligned on how not to encounter this problem. Their armies are a little more robust and include a little more modules than they used to, and I think they've crossed a critical threshold. What are your guys' thoughts?
There's a lot of chaff clearing. There's a lot of chump clearing, like lane blocker clearing models that we're seeing to support delivering 3 snakes in a trench coat directly into the heart of your opponent and demanding interaction.
Right.
All of my games that I just talked about were really great that happened 3 months ago. So now I don't think that I would be so fortunate and I would have to deal with it. Hopefully roll above a 4 this time, but still it's not what I love seeing. That is
right.
It asks a difficult question and its answers aren't easy and they are uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I think I agree with you mostly, Alex. The list composition problems originally, I think, stemmed from how people were building Chimera lists at the time. It was still very much investing heavily into beasts, investing heavily into these big support packages because you felt like you needed to make the things go. As time has gone on, people have kind of come to the realization that not every list needs a Wyvern, and you can take those 19 points into something else. You don't always need Belagul when you have a POW 23 base melee. So suddenly being able to free up some of those points allows you to take things like stalkers, like death dealers, like lashers, as if you weren't taking double lashers anyway, but let's say you were being silly for some reason, which really helps to play that longer game. And I think the other part of it is people as a whole finally realized what the purpose of Incarnate Knights were.
Oh, yeah.
Originally, everybody kind of looked at them as like, oh, they're Cav. They should have 2 or 3 attacks. They should be these giant, like, melee death balls of doing everything. And that's not what they're there for. They're there
They're
to
very
stall
fast
scenario.
time bandits.
Yep.
They're meant to make you waste an immense amount of time and divert hitting power to get them off of points.
Yep.
Because if you don't make a serious commitment, they're not going away.
Correct. And the minute the Chimera community as a large realized that and stopped trying to make them into these workhorse pieces, it made those lists better, because instead of now, well, I need to send this whole unit in because they have to do work, it's like, no, I'm going to walk and one guy's going to place and he's going to repo in and he's going to hold up this point for a turn and I'm going to have 2 more sitting back and maybe a spinner to resurrect the one you just killed.
Right.
Let's do this every turn unless you want to commit to them, and now you're playing on my side of the field and you can't just hide.
Yeah, I think also the advent of Pythia in the Scum and Shadows box was a big deal, because this enables every caster in the faction to reliably apply Hunter's Mark without having to make a huge, dangerous exposure to do it.
Yep.
Why, yes, I have sacrificed an entire unit of Volcor barrages to kill Pythia. Why do you ask? And it was a good trade.
It usually is.
But yeah, so picking up from the Chimera thing, it's interesting, and I was talking to players at LVO, and it was really interesting how much they seem to be of the opinion that this is driving the metagame in many ways. So we have Dusk sitting at tied 3 ways for second place. This is a faction where everybody's like, oh no, yeah, Dusk is taking too many hits, they're on the downswing, etc. Here they are, top of the pack this year. And, my instinct is that this is actually largely a reaction to this Chimera thing.
I think to a point, yes. But I think it very much depends on the caster. I also think Dusk has a couple of very good answers for Old Umbre, so if you're expecting to see them, then that makes a lot of sense why you would want to show up and have an answer to these things.
Yeah, but that is very much a secondary reason why they would be there.
Yeah. But say like a Hazaroth Undead Brick actually does weirdly well into, say, Shirris with a Trichimerics. Why? Because both lists are just trying to dirtle for a turn or two, and it's actually really hard for the Chimera list to get through a bunch of stay death, armor 18, 20, 22 guys and be relevant on scenario. Like, the pieces just aren't in that list.
Yeah, the attacks tap out fairly low, and I mean I've had arguments about this, but the Trichimerics' ranged output isn't all that much.
Nope.
It's mostly the melee full send and then sudden failure to take it on reprisals that's actually the most threatening thing about it.
Completely agree.
Yeah. I think you're right to point out that that Dusk does have a pretty decent to good profile into Old Umbre. One thing I will mention, the European and the North American metas can differ a great deal, and differ in particular preferences that you wouldn't always anticipate. Big Pig got brought into line last year to the point where he's probably appropriately balanced. There is a lot of Big Pig in these Dusk lists. And I mean, one of the things that advertises to me, and part of why I was very hard on this point of analysis, is when you have Big Pig and Moraine in the same list, that screams to me, I am trying to kill Colossals.
And she is one of the few places that can force down a trike even at 0 fury. Like, it says, okay, I'm going to Arcane Vortex 4 times, and she goes, cool, I'm going to throw 5 mortalities.
Yep, exactly.
If this is I don't want this to be my entire feat turn, because hell is that disappointing, but like if it has to be and I get to take this thing off the table, fine.
Right.
Yep.
And the pig also lets you do it without positioning concession, which is really important. Because if you have to full send melee to get it dead, that's one thing. If you just walk up and shoot it to death with an ARM-22 model, that's a whole other kettle of fish.
So Stephen Williams asks, how much do you think the Phantasm is impacting the rise of Dusk?
There's a lot of phantasm in these pairs.
So I'm looking at that, and the way I'm reading it is, yeah, of course there's a lot of Phantasm in these pairs. A good Colossal is taken. It didn't surprise me in the slightest. The Phantasm is excellent. It's not driving the meta like the Trike is, I don't think, but it is a very good Colossal, and in a faction that has not the most popular Warjack loadout and options, you take the good Colossal. It answers a lot of, or it fixes a lot of the issues that Dusk has. But I think more to what Cosma and Ryan are getting to, Dusk is actually a good answer into potential boogeymen that are out there. And I mean, we're also seeing like void engines popping up in these lists too. I mean, the Dusk list, you have to go look at them. They're the Wild West. There is the most consistent thing about the Dusk lists are two. One, the Phantasm is good, and two, that's the only consistent thing. Nothing else. It's crazy.
Yeah. No, yeah. It's we have individual lists picked out to highlight and do a deep dive into. I thought about putting an honorable mention section together, but as I was perusing, some of these key factions, one that stood out to me as like, whoa, this is top of the War Machine Wild West selection is Erica Bev's pair. Particularly her Tyrus list with no cats. And I know as far as like those Longshanks ratings, Tyrus has a freakishly high win rate, and Erica has been pushing that with extreme off-meta variants.
I've played into and seen her play both of those lists several times. They are very powerful, and they are so weird. You'll watch that. I mean, her Cyrafel list has a tendency to just have all the Warjacks out of control. Why not? That's just how it's playing. Things are getting weird. And then her Tyrus list doesn't charge with Blade Masters. Neat. Cool. That's fun too. What are we even doing here? And it's effective. Like, it's really effective. And she plays an excellent scenario game. Puts a lot of emphasis on that. So I expect both of those lists to wake people up, because when you see her pilot them, it's not like you would expect them to be played.
Yep.
Yeah. I can't wait to see how that shakes out on the world stage. I just want to step back and do another top level observation before we get back into individual factions and other things that struck us as odd. This is the first WTC year that is hugely dominated by new prime factions. In the past, there's been either 2023 was actually majority legacy factions, I believe, and then 2024 was very large presence from legacy factions, particularly in the heyday of Big Pig, like maybe half and half, maybe a little bit toward prime armies. This year, 77.5% prime armies. And that's interesting for a couple of reasons. One, the long run advantage of these armies is playing out. I think that a lot of that has to do with the consistency of the spell rack. I think a lot of it has to do with legacy armies were designed for a different game. Mark III, Mark II, Mark I War Machine had a significantly greater melee emphasis, or rather that it wasn't easy to build a combined arms list out of hand. Very few factions did it. Almost every new faction builds a combined arms list without trying. They have reasonable shooting presence and, can exert at least some damage at distance, even if they're not counting on it to win. Whereas for most of these older factions, that is exceedingly rare. So these are consistency things that I think are starting to show up. Go ahead, Ryan.
I was going to say, I think that's a big part of it, but I also think part of it is just the work that's gone into getting these factions available to people. So
Mm.
2023, that was the year me and you had went. I was originally planning on taking Dusk, but it got delayed by so many months that like I couldn't even do that.
Right.
Uh, and then 2024, there was the problems of getting everything out. You know, everyone was a little worried because of the switchover between companies, all that stuff. Now you're seeing, and I think you see it a lot with like the specifically the Gravedigger and the old Umbre numbers, that not only are the models getting out to people, but even the newest releases are getting out to people in enough time that they feel comfortable enough to practice this and be able to feel they can bring it to a high level. And I think that's a big deal when we're talking about the numbers of like seeing some of the new stuff.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because if old Umbre was struggling with release timers, I mean, my buddy Mike Sterling still won a tournament in Los Angeles with just the caster plus beast battle box and the starter, but this number would not be at 15. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Definitely.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's fair. Yeah, like all the factions here have had good availability for everything for a long time.
Mhm.
Uh, versus the only legacy faction that places higher than a new Prime army is Infernals, just beating out Winter Corps. I think Winter Corps is in a rough state right now. If Infernals were more widely available, I think this number might be higher, but I don't know for sure.
I would agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah, I could see it. I think part of that though too is how Infernals works. So like, Chris, you can back me up on this because I think you know. But if you give an Infernals list to an average player and say, "Hey, work out how to do this," there's so many nitpicky like order of activation things. There's so many little things to make sure you're doing in the right order all the time that it can actually be information overload unless you are very practiced with it. So
Uh,
I,
was
I think the
talking.
number would be higher, but I'm
Mhm.
curious if the skill gap would be even greater then, because you're going to have people who can't have the time to practice all of those nitpicky interactions, all of those, oh, I lost the game because Roger activated when really it should have been this wretch. Well,
Yep.
shit.
Yeah, I
Mhm.
mean, it's. I was talking with Andy Bev about it a couple of months ago, and he said it best. Is I informed him, that Orin Midwinter had, or Orin 2 had some rule. I don't even remember what it was, and he's like, "Oh my god, he does." And he said, "I couldn't tell because of the book of rules this man comes with. He's one model that's an attachment in the army. That
Mhm.
door does swing both ways. The cognitive load of playing Infernals on the table isn't so much, oh, this is a super complex army to play. It's War Machine. It plays like other War Machine armies. It's the laundry list of rules that you have.
Mhm.
Everything has like so many different bespoke rules. Your little Empower unit also can randomly heal horrors. Did you know that? They also POW 11s in melee and up to Mat 8, so you can attack with them too. Did you know that? Were you prepared to weaponize that in your game? It's these things that are just so easy to forget in the moment.
Mhm.
It's a lot. So yeah, I agree that the skill gap would be wider there. I do think that there would be more Infernals players if they were more widely available, which according to the new roadmap, I don't know, get ready for March maybe. That might
Yeah.
be when we see
Mhm.
that happen again. But I don't know. It'd be interesting.
Yeah. 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 I mean, I think Infernals, there's, some of the Infernals participation, you can also look to Crick's participation as well.
Mhm.
Because Kythos and Zadaroth are essentially leveraging the same feat, more or less. It turns out that specific feat archetype is obnoxiously powerful.
Yep.
Specifically, +3
Big fan.
defense and a reactive place to being missed. Even if your base defense is bad, which it is in both these factions, um, that's another mild meta warper. And I know a few months ago, a lot of people were really worried about Kythos's impact on the metagame, and also that, Infernals was doing the same thing. It was driving a lot of composition decisions.
I think it still
Um,
is. I think
Yep.
it still is. Oh, no, yeah. Yeah. I mean, I was talking with Sean and some of the other Crix players at LVO, and they were a little bit like, Matt and Rat values have gone through the roof over the last few months.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And then last major legacy faction that sees big representation is Dark Operations. So this is Acephalix. Got a recent tune-up, which is helpful. Models are available, unlike in 2023, where a single horror, when the faction was slightly overtuned, was selling for between $130 and $250.
Yep.
Ooh.
I remember seeing the eBay listings for that.
Yeah.
Oh,
No, yeah. That was the talk of the whole event. But yeah, after that, it really drops off. I don't mention Army of the Western Reaches because it turns out 2/3 of the Army of the Western Reaches players are on the same team.
Okay, that's impressive, honestly.
To Stephen Williams, I think I mentioned this last week when it was announced that Crucible Guard would be going through its own 3D printing and development cycle. They are soft admitted to the Prime Club.
I'm kind of curious if Dark Ops and Crucible Guard and Infernals are going to get fully updated to the point where they actually just say, okay, we're calling these Mark IV Prime armies now, whatever terminology you want to give them, and say we're switching them over. They're picking up a spell rack. They're picking up, these things that the Mark IV armies have just on the re-release of them, and that's how we're going to run them.
I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't, just for the reason of one, a spell rack is a ton of development effort, and two, that these are almost sort of gateway armies that if you have invested in a 3D printer, why not pick up War Machine? Because there is a competitively viable army out there as an option for you that you can print your way into, but it's not necessarily, interfering with, the retail purchases of the stuff that they're putting a lot of new effort and manufacturing and logistics into.
That's
Yeah,
fair.
I think that they wanted to rework Dark Operations specifically because they would have had to just reprint so many legacy models that never had 3D sculpts to begin with. I mean, all of those different infantry options, Steelheads never existed as a 3D sculpt, period. The Horgenhold Forge Guard didn't either. They'd have to create these things baseline. They have the 3D sculpts for Crucible Guard in hand. They had the 3D sculpts for the monstrosities and several of the other Cephalix bits ready to go. So it made more sense to, hey, let's just prune this army, tune it down to what we have, add a couple of other spicy things, call it a day. I don't think that it required like a super heavy lift on the development side. I could be wrong, not a developer, don't know. But I think that's what drove DO for Crucible Guard and for Infernals, even for Convergence. I think you'll see some balance tweaks. Crucible Guard in particular definitely has its haves and its have-nots, and the have-nots do outnumber the haves. So I think you'll see some things brought up, some things shifted around a little bit, but I wouldn't expect a full spell rack. I definitely wouldn't expect like a massive shift in what the force loadout looks like, what your Warjack solo units look like. I've seen some scuttlebutt, people hoping for a character Warjack and a character unit because they announced, there's going to be like a command set. Sure, I could see that happening, kind of like they did with the Iconoclasts.
Criterions, yeah.
Yeah, these special little like, hey, here's a little nugget for you. You've been a fan of this faction forever. Enjoy. I could see him doing that, but beyond that, I think that's it.
Right. Yeah, and I think that's about where my expectations are, but hey, we could be surprised. Let's see. Returning back to specific metagame analyses, both Signar factions at 16, that is a strong showing.
For sure.
Old Umbre at 15, Necrofactorium at 14. I'm surprised it's only 14.
Yep.
And then the rest of these feel about right given the metagame travails of the other factions. I still think Brine Bloods are great. I'm going to go on my soapbox for just a moment and say, my opinion that the player base for Brine Bloods is self-sabotaging, whether they like it or not, remains true.
Shots fired.
I will fire that shot every day. Also, just micro notation. Last year there were 4 instances of surgeons being played at the WTC. All of them were me. I am not going this year, and there are 0. Surgeons are cost 2. What are you guys doing?
Rough.
Might be the only person I know that's taken them. Granted, I think I've only ever played against Danny.
I'm the only person I know that takes them. I feel like it's a huge L for Brine Bloods.
Yeah, I'm trying to think if I've ever actually seen one on the table, and I've seen a couple in painting competitions. I don't
Yeah,
think
I
I've
didn't know
ever
it's
seen
normal.
one
I had to look it
used
up.
in an actual game.
Yeah, but Orgoth and Wintercore also being low. Brine Bloods and Brine Bloods being markedly higher than the last 2 prime factions is also, I think, correct. In a team environment, it is the kind of place where they shine because they are armies that can build exceptional generalists.
Yeah. And just to comment on Orgoth and Wintercore being so far below all the other prime armies numbers wise, I think a lot of that has to do with where they released. Signar got its big upgrade and glow up in January, specifically with Huxley just becoming an absolute monster, and then Kane releasing. That Orgoth and Wintercore haven't really had that.
Right.
Orgoth is still waiting on its
January.
2-player box, and is basically just Haruska the Show at this point, which is such a
Right.
known quantity. Like it's
Right.
a good list, but
Mhm.
it's so hard to build anything to go with it or to show up and be like, "Hey, here's this interesting thing I'm doing." It's like you're dropping Harusk. We both know it. Don't try and play this game with me.
Yeah.
And Wintercore feels the same, where it's like, look, what are you really bringing? What tricks are you showing up with? It's going to be Baronova and Savrin, maybe Sakura if you're feeling frisky.
Right. Yeah, and I think Orgoth's caster stable is a little troublesome, but I think what in that Horusk remains a metagame terrorist, but it's really hard to find somebody who performs on his level or covers a matchup he's not already better into.
Yeah.
Wintercore has a bunch of casters with pretty similar sticks. They're not really bad by any stretch of the imagination, but
Not
a
at all.
common element between these 2 factions is a lot of their stable has serious problems. And you really, really strongly concentrate usage on a handful of things. It means your weaknesses are really pronounced and your advantages are pronounced by their limitations.
I play both of those armies, so I want to disagree with you. I want a lot of things in life.
It's up there with that new Bentley.
Yeah, I'll love that more than I would actually love disagreeing with you right now. In fact, you're not wrong. I have a positive opinion of both armies to an extent. I definitely feel more constrained list building wise by Sea Raiders than I do by Wintercore. But Wintercore, I love the leaders, but when you start getting into what do you take with the leaders, there's 3 buttons that I slam repeatedly, and that's kind of my list. And it's unfortunate that so much of the stable is just kind of okay. And it's like good enough, but when we're going to a premier event where people are playing Shira Strike, good enough is not quite cutting it as much as it needs to.
Yeah.
Other note is that I do believe that Wintercore is probably the worst prime army into the Trichomerics. They have probably the greatest amount of difficulty into it compared to other armies. Ironically, the model that's probably the best at dealing with it is the Mastodon, which got its threat range nerfed last year. And
No, it's
is
not.
quite what you need it to be now.
No, yeah. I think that's exactly right. And Wintercore has struggled with damage since day one, even in 2022, where durability was like way lower. They had struggles with it even then. I remember WTC in 23 being like evaluating my Wintercore armies as a Storm Legion player running Debaro. I'm like, this doesn't do enough damage, green, doesn't do enough damage, green, doesn't do enough damage, green. And I think I hit like one Winter Core army as yellow. And that was just, I was just running ARM 22.
Yep. I had a similar experience running Lilith because it was literally just me going, I cast Fog of War. Can you actually hit me with any of your guns? Not enough that I care about. Let's go.
When the +2 defense bonus from concealment is a breaker, it's like, ooh, you may have problems here.
I ran into it. I was playing a stress test game into Andy Bev with Winter Core. He was playing Fablet, and I won't tell you what I was playing. But I ran into just this situation where I'm like, I need to shoot this unit, and you have put up one buff and put them in a forest, and I can't. That's it. Like that. That's all you had to do was, here is a defensive buff, here is a forest. I can't. I could not deal with this unit with just that like low threshold of kind of an expected defensive profile. It's like,
Yep.
There are ways I could have played it better, but just looking at it going, I can't like raw dog my way through this one. Okay, this is not great.
Right. And I would have said in years past that, like, you know, well, at the very least, Rick Coe will show us the error of our ways by like dominating all the way to top tables. But he's part of this big Gravediggers cluster up here now. So you know you're in trouble when your faction champions are hopping.
Glavis is on Old Umbry as well. I can't remember what Chris Davies is on. I don't think he's on Winter Core either.
Yeah.
So
I tell you what, guys,
fans for Winter Core aren't there this year.
Take us home with top level metagame considerations. I got to run to the bathroom real quick, so it's going to be your show for the next 2 minutes or so.
God help us all. Now I have
all right, Chris, you're in charge.
All right, let's go. So, all right, so you know, we've seen already that there are a ton of new factions that are here, that Infernal's Dark Operations, the only legacy armies that have substantial representation. One thing I think is pretty cool about this spread, though, is that even though this is the most we've seen of Mark IV Prime armies that released in Mark IV for representation, doing a rough count that I might be off by 1 or 2, there are 37 armies in the game total. And only 10 of them aren't showing up. Yep. Which, when you have 37 armies across 160 players, it's not bad, actually. Like that, honestly, I would have expected that number to be higher.
No, it's not bad, but it is funny which ones didn't show up, right? Like, there's no circle representation, there's no old Cricks, there's no Armored Core, there's no 5th Division. Like, there's
3 whole factions didn't show up, like Legacy Khador, Legacy Crix, and Legacy Circle. That's wild.
Yeah. And even the ones that did show up, like, you have Storm Knights that showed up. It's like, okay, why did they show up? Because there's these crazy def skews, and it turns out when you just drop Striker 3 and say, I don't care what your def is, I hit, it makes it really easy. You see Final Interdiction that showed up for, I think, much of the same reason.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of these older ones that are showing up are running these harder skews, or are showing up as, I think, specific answers to, hey, Harusk is a problem. You know how I answer that problem? I take Crucible Guard and say he's -7 armor, and now I kill whatever I want to kill.
Yeah, not my favorite thing in the world. Definitely effective, though. And then what I love is the Storm of the North. We've got 2 there. I've had the misfortune of having a local who plays Storm of the North relatively routinely. So I can tell you right now, Cole Grima is quite legit into this meta, and I do believe not nearly enough people are going to be experienced into playing into her, and she could definitely dark horse her way to some success.
Oh, for sure. I think a lot of these armies could. So between like the Narwhal Null League, I don't ever know what to call it. I keep ending up into a bunch of the old legacy armies for whatever god awful reason, and I don't know why Joe hates me. But like, a bunch of these I looked at originally and was just like, why? What are you doing with this? What is the point of this? And then you see some of Storm Knights as an example. Like, in the update change, Stormlance has picked up an armor and I think a POW and something
Mhm.
and something else where it was just like, I remember these being a pain to kill. I don't remember them being casually armor 25 and also threatening 15 and also having 4 attacks. What is happening right now?
Yeah,
Like,
some of the legacy armies definitely got some love.
they for
Eh,
sure, but it leads into these situations where, like, you look at some of the older stuff and it's like, the knowledge gap of people being able to play into it is going to be huge. But also, there's some very, very strong tools there that, oof,
all right.
does the absence of
Dangerous
any
question
army.
time. Does the absence of any army of those three legacy armies imply that it would be community accepted if SFG drops them from Prime? Ooh, I don't know.
You want
I
to
don't
start
want
or
to
you want
speak
me to?
for a whole, like an entire War Machine community. I think that I wouldn't. Again, this goes back to the take what you see here with a grain of salt.
Yeah.
Um, it could just be that these armies don't quite have what teams were looking for in a compositional value. That could be what we're seeing here. Like, why I personally have my own issues with Devourer's Host, but Secret Dominion for the circle side is actually pretty good.
Hmm.
I
Mhm.
could see them performing quite well in this shakeup. The fact that they're not being taken right now, maybe teams didn't like them. Maybe teams didn't have the models to play what they would need for them, or they just didn't have the experience or the reps.
Yep.
Right.
I would probably stop short of saying that it'd be cool to start dropping legacy armies just yet.
Right. And these 160 players are not the entire metagame.
No.
Odds are somebody you play with on a weekly basis is still, a hardcore champion of this faction without necessarily, wanting to be, doing the resource commit to play the circuit and play the WTC.
Yeah.
I know a very good player out of the New York City meta area that I played against since Mark II, off and on. And he goes to one event every single year. It's Poker Brawl because he has a family and a job and he can't do much of anything else. And that's what his priority is. And when you see him, and you'll see him on the Norwal Null leagues, Charlie Brian, that's who I'm talking about. He'll
Mm-hmm.
beat the pants off you with
Mm-hmm.
legacy stuff.
Yep.
He's an excellent player, but he never goes anywhere
Yeah.
because he's doing other stuff.
Right.
I genuinely don't think you're ever going to hit a time where the community at large is going to say, "Oh yeah, drop these armies entirely, stop supporting them." I
Yeah.
just don't think you're ever going to see it. You're going to see a time where the company, I think, says, "Hey, we're going to do this," but I don't think you will ever see a time where the community says, "Yeah, we don't care if this leaves." Like, there's too much emotional investment for the old heads. There's too much time spent on it, and there's still, even if you're not playing that army anymore, like I have full FA of all the Legion stuff. If somebody showed up tomorrow to my local store and said, "Hey, I want to play this and I think these are cool," I would give them that army and just be like, "Here you go. If you think these are cool, somebody will get some use out of them. Take them. At least they're getting something." And the ability to do that is, I think, a huge uh, boon slash feather in the cap, especially when you look at how it's just, to throw it out there, like GW is retiring models recently, and they're taking entire characters and entire units and just being like, "Oh yeah, we're refreshing these, but these don't exist anymore."
Mm-hmm.
And it is constantly throwing waves, and people are getting pissed, and people are coming back to that game and being like, "Oh, this was some of my favorite stuff, and I just can't use it." Um,
Well,
I I don't think
just
you will ever see that point. I guess is
yeah,
my point.
yeah, and just to mention, model obsolescence can be accomplished in multiple ways. The way it was traditionally accomplished in War Machine was, yes, the legacy catalog stuck around forever, and sort of to Advanced Maneuver's point, it was harmful to Privateer Press as a business to have a range that was unstockable
Mhm.
because some of these legacy models were all but unfieldable. They were in
Yep.
the book, they were in the rules, but playing them was a mistake. Now I don't think the current WTC is necessarily a great exemplar for this, but I think you are seeing, sort of a correct, not quite corrective action, but the models are available. People can get them into their hands. The flavor of thing, if you liked it, unless you were playing Protectorate, odds are you will have a good match for you here somewhere. Whether it fulfills on play style, particular kind of power fantasy, or aesthetic, you can probably find it. And while it's not every local meta, this right here is an indicator that, business is good for these new models. These old models essentially don't get a lot of support, except for the lucky ones elevated to semi-prime. And Chris, something super salient from your point is like, well, if you lose Circle, you lose, Brian locally. Brian's been in this game forever. Brian wants to keep being in this game forever, because it's his hobby, it's his social circle, it's a game he loves, but he ain't got the money or free time for new armies.
Yeah.
So that's a consideration.
Yeah, and I mean, from a standpoint of how much is it losing the company, right? If you're not making the models and you've already said, hey, we're not producing these models anymore, how much are you actually losing keeping the rules around? Like, especially if hey, they're not going to get played a ton. There probably won't be any crazy rules issues with them. And if there are, we can address them fairly quickly because there's not a huge player base attached. It doesn't cost anything to maintain the database, basically.
Right. Yeah, and just anecdotally, I've seen 3D printable Cephalix actually be a gateway for bringing a lot of people in who wouldn't
Very
otherwise.
Smart decision on their side.
Yeah.
So, I saw it on Delaware's Discord a week ago. So Brandon said the coolest thing about Dark Operations is if you give a demo game with them and the person you're demoing to is like, wow, this is really cool, I'm really excited, you can say, would you like this army? I can get it for you in 2 days. Here you go. Here's an army. Just like that is so like what a gateway drug. There's no other mini game that does that now.
The first hit is free.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's rather than get more metaphysical, let's get more tangible and dive into some of our specific army highlights. So the stuff we really wanted to call attention to directly, and we've all gone through and picked out a personal army to highlight. Ryan, why don't you take us into what looks most noteworthy for you?
Sure.
We're looking at Dean Booth from England, King's Cross.
Yes. So as a rule, I don't like to give the English too much credit. I've had too many conversations with Jamie Perkins that I can't give them any credit. But I looked at these lists and I genuinely not entirely fell in love, but I was like, yes, a man after my own heart. So he's running Nixian. He's one of the few people running Nixian. There's, I think, 4 or 5 of her out of 18. And it's very similar to a list that I personally run. You've got Aklis, you've got double Vipex, you've got the Wyvern, Pythia, because she's just a staple, double Stalkers, Shades, Death Dealers, and double Lashers. This entire list is literally just going, I'm going to walk up the field slightly, I'm going to put cloud walls up, and I am going to wait. And at some point, you're going to have to come forward. And if you try to nickel and dime me, my 3-inch melee lashers are going to walk forward, they're going to drag stuff in, I'm going to kill it and repo back, and I'm going to put the cloud wall back up.
So we're looking at... So this cloud wall is accomplished with, we got Nixian, Aklis, double Vipex. One is an Asp, Chasen, and Cleavers. The other is a much more premier Impalers and Hunter's Mark. We've got a Wyvern, Pythia, as you mentioned, double Quick Fang Stalkers, Shades, Death Dealers, Talon Lashers. That's a ton of units.
Yep. And it's going to nickel and dime you all day until eventually you commit. Or if you're one of those people who goes, oh, you gave me a unit and really overcommits, suddenly it's like, oh, these acrobatic stalkers are charging your caster. I'm going to swap prey onto them. They're going to be hitting at POW 15 to 17, MAT 9. I'm going to start just going in and hitting whatever I want to hit with ridiculous numbers. It is forcing you to commit heavily and then punishing you for doing so.
Right. It's
And
inviting you to play on their side of the board, both between clouds and how it can sort of rock up on scenario elements with very minimal commits that demand a lot of answers, really tee off Execration and Blackest Night.
Yep.
Base defense is 13 or 14 basically across the board.
Yep, 14 almost on everything.
Yeah, and you know, the double Quick Fang Stalkers and the Shades in here, by the way, I think are worth a particular call out. Because Talon Death Dealers and Talon Lashers are generally offensive units that like to wait in the wings until they can really go to town on their ideal target. These 3 units are units you're not really wedded to and are very comfortable playing and dying on your opponent's side of the board to buy time.
Yep.
Essentially to allow the entirety of the rest of the list to set up and play the game, the kind of game it wants.
Yeah. All of the units are also massive assassination threats, which I just love. The Quick Fangs all have acrobatics. With Hunter's Mark, they're speed 9, so they threat 13, 14 if Nixian racks dash. Hitting at, I think, like POW 15 to 17 under feet. The Shades with Ricochet can pick up, those important solos, or just be able to, you shield guarded, I'm going to hit your caster anyway. And then you still have the drags from the Lashers. You've got Finisher off the Death Dealers. There are so many ways to just go, did you put your caster accidentally in the wrong spot or not block an angle? I can drag them out into the middle of nowhere and just get rid of them.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Chris, any thoughts on this one before we go into the much more conventional Sheerus?
I'd probably keep Zadoroth about 20 inches away from the front line. That scares the hell out of me. Like, oh god, that's like Ryan said. That's a list that's just like did you put your leader in X spot? Oh, that was stupid. Okay, neat.
Yep.
Like, I love it. It's what we were talking about earlier on, where it's a list that can just reach out and go, cool, I'm just going to win this game for my team, 35-minute game, and now I actually get to decompress for my next one. I will save you from the red out. It's very, very cool. And yeah, Stephen, the list names are testing the character limits of the app, which is always my favorite.
I just noticed this. Yeah. Letting your customers set your standards is a dangerous game because the race to the bottom is pretty easy to win. Setting your own standards and living up to them is a better way to profit, not to mention a better way to make your day worth all the effort you put into it. Seth Godin. When the first time Justin asked me his phone, Justin Boo, after a tournament, and like, pull up this list. It's like, Chopin Opus 12. And I'm like, huh? He's like, I name all my lists after the song I was listening to when I built them.
Yep.
Sure. Wild.
Let's talk about I don't believe that if you do good things will happen. Let's talk about the Sheerus list. Ryan, I'm curious for your thoughts. But a top level observation, because one of the things I did, by the way, in preparation for this was scroll through all the Chimera pairs and see how many included trikes. I found there was 105% trike usage. And I was surprised the number was that low, but then again, maybe we covered it. We'll read it at the end. Maybe we covered it in how much of a specialist environment, the WTC tends to be in off lists. I was surprised that only one player had a trike in 2 lists. Now we've explained the logic for why we shouldn't be surprised. The other thing I noticed is that I'm used to American trikes that cost 31 points like God intended. And I've actually seen huge cost variation and therefore configuration variation in the trikes. One thing I will say has never deviated is the negation tail, at least that I've noticed. But
As it shouldn't.
yeah,
That is objectively the correct choice on that one.
it's also
Yeah.
objectively probably the reason the Trichomerics is overpowered.
Yeah,
yeah.
probably. So fun fact, I think originally it had the Mulg version of Arcane Vortex.
Oh, where it gains
where
Fury to do it?
No, where you take a Fury off of it to do it.
Oh,
So
good lord.
what you would end up doing is full loading this thing, doing its attacks, and then be like, all right, do you want to cast spells? Because I can negate 4 of them, and just let it sit. And thankfully they decided that was probably too strong.
Mhm.
I
I mean, I think either version is too strong, let's be honest.
I like this version. I might be biased, but I like it.
All right, well let's dig into it. Tell us about this this Helen Mirren Sheerus list.
Yeah, so it's running Skilla, the 34-point trike, which in my opinion is the objectively correct trike.
You like the eyeless head that much?
I like the eyeless head solely because it solves order of activation issues, and the slam gun can just win games.
Oh yeah. That was on my list to talk about in Brine Bloods that I glossed over. Was shocking lack of crab nets, ranged knockdown, and an extremely controllable positioning sensitive knockdown is so effing good in this game. It's unbelievable that every time you see people leaving it on the table.
So it's the thing I really like about it is because it's a 8-inch gun with a D6 slam in any direction, you get to roll the distance first and then decide on the direction you want it to go. Which leads to a couple fun situations that has won me games of I'm gonna, I rolled a hit. Oh, I get 5 inches. Cool. Your heavy is going to go over the top of your caster and land in such a way that at least disturbances them forward. Hey, look, they're in range of other things now. I'm going to be able to find the exact angle I want to get the thing exactly where I want it to go to be able to kill it. Or if you're an inch out of range, suddenly I'm just pulling you that inch in, and now my 3-inch POW 23 melee is just going to kill you because you're knocked down. It is such a strong take for minimal investment when you're already spending 30 points on it. I don't know why you wouldn't. Like, genuinely.
When I was first talking about the trike with a couple of other players, I was just, I assumed that the slam gun was always taken. And then I was told by a couple of players, it's not actually taken all that often. And I swear I was like, am I taking crazy pills? Like, huh? Why wouldn't it be? And I still haven't found a good answer to that. It is it's a game winner, like you said, Ryan.
Well, so I'll tell you probably why the answer is that. Sheerus can offset a lot of list vulnerabilities, but it is because Chimera can be sensitive to the cost of its Trichomerics.
Oh, it can.
It needs to come in at very specific values, and your list composition needs to accommodate having approximately a third, but like the margin of 5 to 6 points in its cost variance matters a lot. This list is running Skilla, Vipex, Cheapo with Hunter's Mark and an Arc Node, Belagul, Pythia, Spinner, Paragon, because of course you will. Stalkers, Lashers, Shadowmancers. So interesting absences from this list. One, no Incarnate Knights for that scenario game we talked about, and that come and kill these, give me your models, because you can't remove these without dedicated effort. The other thing is no Death Dealers. What that often means is actually the infantry base of your army, your units don't actually have finishing power. Lashers are neat. You can damage stack on Lashers, but at the end of the day, they still tap out at POW 14. And this army is only running 4 units, one of which is support for the trike, and all of which are actually quite vulnerable and can be removed very quickly. If I was to provide criticism, I think actually the most misplaced piece here is Skilla.
Yep. You beat me to it. Yeah, I think Skilla is here because of the healing and the aura for concealment, and it procs off of
it procs Prowl on your caster and your Vipex.
Yep. which is
To
great.
be honest, though, your engagement ranges, especially with Pythia in the army now, are so long that like you don't need it. You just don't need it.
You don't. It does keep you alive in some scenarios. Shiras being a 16-14 does not like to take the chance that you might roll it and hit her. So just
Right? Yeah,
being
she
able to
doesn't
say,
like being attacked in any way.
just saying no, she's stealth. You don't even have the opportunity is never a bad thing.
Mhm.
But she's also rack 3, and you could just take Veil for that. So
Mhm.
maybe just do that and save yourself the points.
Yeah,
Um,
maybe save yourself the points, and maybe dump Belagul, who's a little bit optional, and take
Yep.
knights and death dealers.
Yes. So yeah, I think Skilla is probably not the choice I would make here. I don't super love the little 10-point Vipix with the cleavers. I think you need to spend the 2 points for the impalers. It for the
Mhm.
late game hitting power, especially once your trike is dead, skill is dead. You need something that can say, "Oh man, either you had a really good turn or I had a really bad one, and I need to kill this heavy." And the little 10-point version just does not do it well.
Right. Even
Um,
with Belagul present, like it cresting POW 17.
17 to 19.
Yeah. So that's actually a really good point, actually, because now that we've discussed, like the absence of death dealers and all this other stuff, is wow, the only 2 models in this army that do damage are the Trike and Skilla.
Yep. Again, the stalkers can get there, right? You can load them up. But it is very much trying to play the my trike is the center of attention game here,
Mhm.
and a bunch of it is built around that. I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. I think you take this into like a Harusk,
Mhm.
and you'll still have a pretty good time just because he has even lower threat ranges than you.
Yep.
Yeah.
But I think this is going to be the off list into a lot of the field. I don't think this is going to be the main thing you see.
Yeah, that's funny because usually I see the Trike and I think primary list.
Yep.
Yeah. And like I mentioned earlier at LVO, I was remarking most American Chimera armies have corrected for the composition problems, not just in their staying power to maintain models on the board, but also in their ability to deal damage. So even the most exotic one I saw at LVO was Devon running double Vipex, but both those Vipexes had impalers.
Mm-hmm.
I
He
do not like.
basically never tapped out of hitting power.
Yeah, I don't like non-impaler Vipex, as I told Ryan this earlier. I
Yeah.
think the 10-point Vipex is always a mistake.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a hard thing to sell, and I think what this list is trying to do is rely on those slams. It's trying to rely on the pushes. Also from the trike, it's trying to rely on Shadowbind to control the engagements and to stay involved. And
Mhm.
that will work to a point. But the minute you start hitting shield guards or things that can reach out and touch you back or actually be a threat to Shiras, it becomes an issue. And on some of these wide scenarios, like best laid plans, if the wrong thing goes away, or two fronts, if you can force her to just choose a side instead of sitting in the middle and going, I'm going to threaten your caster and also be able to do all these things, like
Mhm.
this list just gets significantly worse.
Mhm. That's a fair observation. So we're actually looking at, I mean, we're presuming an unconventional strategy by Dean in that this is a Nixian forward pair.
I think so. And I think if that's the case, it's going to actually do very well. People are
Yeah.
going to expect that, oh, you're dropping the trike. And when it's not there, and suddenly you don't have the cloud wall answer, you don't have the hitting to get through, the high defense, especially with execration, or to be able to efficiently remove that many units, it's gonna throw people off.
Yeah. That's and I've seen a lot of Nixian lists, especially since her rework, where I'm like, yeah, I could take it or leave it. This is the first one where I actually really love the composition here.
Mm-hmm.
Like this feels like a Nixian army. It's fielding a Wyvern, it's fielding Hunter's Mark, and it's still firing on all cylinders. It has a big battle group, it has a wide unit base, and it doesn't feel like it's missing anything.
Yep.
Yeah, I love
100%.
All right. Well, let's close with some wise words from Dame Helen Mirren. I don't believe that if you do good, good things will happen. Everything is completely accidental and random. Sometimes bad things happen to very good people, and sometimes good things happen to bad people. But at least if you try to do good things, then you're spending your time doing something worthwhile. So
Amen.
that's trying to make your opponent laugh while you are experiencing war table dice.
That's a community service right there.
Somebody wrote that just for acres, didn't they?
Oh man. All right. Well, let's kick over to speaking of acres, because I believe this is an Orgoth pair. Let's kick over to Sverre from Norway Munin.
Oh yeah.
Chris, this is your pick. Where's
This is
Norway
my
in the
pick.
alphabet?
Why did we pick Sverre from Norway Munin for Orgoth? What's interesting about Orgoth? He isn't playing Horus.
Oh my god.
You can do that?
The legend, the champion,
There's a
absolute
law
hero.
in most countries, but apparently in Norway they don't have it.
It's crazy.
I love these lists. I gotta say, even looking at them, I'm not 100% sure what's going on under the hood. I haven't looked at their team composition in total to get like a real idea of it. But we just spent the portion of tonight, and then the episode before with Charles on, just kind of ragging on the fact that Orgoth is the Horus faction, and then here's Sverre not playing Horus at all. So obviously, I want him to go 5-0 and win everything, because except for he can go 5-0, but his team not so much.
Well, let's start with the Orsis list, because our editor Keith provided us with what I think is a really thrilling template for running Butcher 5, and it's infantry heavy and leaning against the recursion element of his feat in favor of having a hold your own, you're applying the shooting pressure army. This see is more or less the opposite.
Yep, this is going the whole other way. We are battle group. We've got your Nerd Jackal with an Arc Node, Mace, Clawed Fist. We've got 2 Nerd Tyrants with Relentless Charge, Scything, Flail, and Clawed. That's your 13-point basic melee package. You've got a Groton Keeper for the Shield Guard to keep Mr. Orsis alive, because he really doesn't like being dead. You've got Karovnik for shooting out another Hunter's Mark whenever you want it. You've got one of my favorite ads here, Magnus and Invictus, for a spicy 15-inch threat Hunter's Mark POW 18 in your craw. 2 Reaver Commanders because duh. Therian Vanek because also duh. Forge Master, you're taking Tyrants and a Jackal. You're taking a Forge Master. And then a splash of Axers. The double barragers is interesting, and then
double barragers I like a lot.
So here's what I like here. Also, command cards. It's pretty obvious what the game plan is here. It's Smash Mouth. We're looking at Blessing of the Gods, Careful Recon for Pathfinder. On the few things that need it, Invictus. Lucky Penny, Old Faithful, again for Invictus. And then Sapper for when you put that defense somewhere and go, ha, Orsis can't get to me. Well, ha, yeah, he can. Heck your wall, here I come. This one also leans into a bit of what Keith was looking at last week, where you still have units that like staying back in the barragers that are durable, that make, funny enough, good feed targets.
Yes.
Hey, kill a couple of barragers from range, I'll bring them back, and I don't care that they don't activate this turn, because they'll be far enough back that you're probably not getting to them until they activate again next turn.
Right. Yeah. And your army doesn't have tough, so I don't care if I blow it this turn.
Yeah, exactly. And then, we got a splash of Axers. Hey, sometimes randomly 1 lives. Cool, I get 2 more. But then you've got a Volkar, Therian Vanek, the 2 Reaver Commanders, all decent feat targets. This one's coming at you.
And there's a combination too here. One thing that I like is Magnus and Invictus supplement the double barragers. Double barragers is actually a big deal for scenario play, because it means, small base dickheads can't seize objectives securely against them, particularly on scenarios like Wolves at Our Heels. You combine that with 2 boostable guns coming out of your True Merc, and you've actually got now like a non-trivial timer. Like these aren't gonna crush your heavies, but I'm not worried about crushing your heavies from range. I'm worried about running you out of your ability to score.
I'm looking something up real fast. It's been 1 minute since I played Invictus. That knockdown gun has an AoE 3.
It does, yes.
So here's a fun little bit of tech there. Oh, look, I crit. You shield guarded. Hope you had a bunch of other dudes around, otherwise your caster is knocked down. Enjoy 6 barragers to the face.
Yep.
It's the old Krios pop and drop, near and dear to my heart. Absolutely love to see it in the list where I do. So I would again play the Ever Loving Hell out of the sources list. It still has butcher problems in that if you're running into a bunch of guns, you have 2 shield guards. Probably not going to be a great time for you. But into the right list, one where Butcher kind of gets to go up and you get to threaten quite like a decent amount of very heavy hitting, far reaching melee presence, backed up by decent shooting, like decent artillery shooting, and Invictus playing, that midfield role of I'm going to shoot you until I'm bored of that and decide to punch you. And Magnus also just throwing rockets whenever he feels like it too. I think that this one's pretty dang fun.
Yeah, and just compounding the Magnus point, I actually really like this inclusion, because as you say, the default plan is I'm just going to come screaming across the table at you, but this army can play variations of that theme, and the theme often for Orsis is just let's get stuck in the mid to late game and become unkillable and wipe out everything left.
Yeah.
Magnus and Invictus get to play in a variety of different ways. Hunter's Mark is the rare explicit synergy with them, where it's not just if you trigger Robot Vengeance, it's also just the Jackal got to apply Hunter's Mark to you, so now this heavy is going to come screaming across the table at you. But they also have the option to play Fallback, or to play Scenario Anchor, or to play Army Anchor, where, Invictus just has great defensive stats, and if your opponent's under a timer to get initiation done, they may be left with no option other to charge him and to put a lot of resources in one place, which Butcher likes and which the Axers like. The Axers actually enable you to play, and the Tyrants enable you to play cleanup without ever actually committing your caster to do it.
Even if you're not a huge fan of going into the Maws of Death, you don't want to risk these charges from this army, so you're going to play cagey, you're going to play a more passive scenario game. I mean, it's still 6 barragers and a knockdown gun. Is your entire army immune to knockdown? I don't know. Let's go find out. And you'd be surprised like how much damage those barragers do when they suddenly don't have to worry about that Rat 6 anymore. They can level medium and large targets if they're direct hitting with everything. So it's gonna play cagey until you decide, all right, I can't play. You either outshoot it, which means honestly probably you're not seeing Butcher. The one thing he really doesn't want to see is a bunch of guns in his face. But if you only have some mid-range shooting, he might actually outshoot you and force an issue. And you don't really want to be forced into a position where you have to be charged by his army.
Yep.
Right.
So 2 things. I'd like to address Jay Beatnik's comment first. Do you think Sapper is better than the defenses where you get 2 walls and a powder keg that can remove a defense anyway? Short answer, yes, because the powder keg can be played around, and yes, that's an entire mini positioning game you get to play. But if you're worried about somebody's caster standing just out of deployment behind a wall, you might not be able to get a powder keg there, whereas Sapper, you will always be able to say, nope, Zat, come out, you're getting smacked.
Right.
Not to call anybody out specifically there.
Yeah. I mean, I used to be a big believer in single wall double powder kegs as an option. And what I found over time is similar. Like, yeah, it's a positioning mini game. But more importantly, Sapper just says, I declare the card. The one terrain feature that was genuinely bothering me that you placed is gone. Versus it demands an activation commit from a model with an open fist. It's also an obstacle that can sometimes movement block your own army, which is inconvenient. But the biggest cost you were paying is it does take an activation to use, and that is a high price to pay.
Yes.
Like, there are some casters, like, in this list, the cost you're paying is your arc node, which I think is actually like an almost irredeemable issue for a caster like Butcher
It
5.
could be the claws in Open Fist as well, so it could be your tyrants, but
oh yeah, but yeah. I mean, like, I used to do it with Shadow Tongue, but every time I had even my lightest, least impactful Dire Troll walk and pitch, I'm like, oh.
Yeah.
There are casters where I would still strongly consider it, and toward the end of my time in Storm Legion, looking at Kane 4, I was like, defenses running double powder keg and a wall is probably on net better because I have the 4 coursers with Open Fist. But even so, that activation can be quite costly.
Let's not forget also the fact that this is a tournament. You're playing on a 1-hour death clock. Time pressure is a thing. Decision making is a thing. It's so much easier cognitively to just go, I don't like that. Go away. That's it. I play a command card. What I didn't like is gone, like you said, Alex. It's just, I like things that, personally, I like things that don't take a whole lot of decision making to just actualize. It just, hey, there's a wall there. I didn't want you to be behind it. Cool, it's gone. I don't have to think about anything else. Yes, other things may be generically better, but I now don't have to think. I don't have to spend 30 seconds setting that up during deployment. I don't have to think about it every single turn. I just get to go, that wall you just placed there, and I just look him in the eye. Just remember I have Sapper. Just smile.
Yeah,
I got Sapper. Maybe
I think it's especially, like you're saying, under the time constraints, impactful in that if your opponent is expecting to have a wall that they can hide behind all game, and you're going, well, I'm not spending 2 command cards this turn anyway, may as well just get rid of it, you can force them to either have to move up, or now they're having to rearrange their plan and take more time, and it cost you nothing because it's turn 2 when you weren't getting involved yet anyway.
Yep. And, I don't like Kythos' wall in the middle of the field on principle, so heck him.
No one does. The other thing I wanted to bring up about the actual list is it definitely feels like one of the, like you were saying, one where it just kind of runs across and screams at you until suddenly it's gunning you down. What do you think this is targeted towards? Because my initial reaction was like, oh, this is probably like a Crix or a Gravedigger's answer because of like the Mass Grievous of I get to get around all of your nonsense. I'm not dealing with this. Everything's just going to be dead. And I don't know if that's actually correct.
I don't think
it feels like it should be wrong the more I look at it, but then I'm wondering what would you play something like this into?
Honestly, the fun thing is I would probably play this I hate to say it for Cosmo, I'd probably play this into like Brine Bloods, for example.
Yes, absolutely, do it.
Yeah.
This is the kind of army that is genuinely scary to Brine Bloods.
Yeah. It's a tougher one because Butcher isn't played a whole ton, and so sussing out his best matchups and his worst matchups. It also, this is going to sound funky, it may be Old Umbry as well.
Sure. Yeah. I think that's a reasonable take. Old Umbry doesn't actually like casting Windstorm and maintaining it consistently. And if you're asking more than 1 or 2 turns of Windstorm from them, they're mad about it.
And they definitely don't want to do it from a Butcher gun line. Like,
Yeah.
Now, you don't get the Hunter's Mark against the Primevals, but that's like the only thing that's spell defended. So we play around that. You will get it against the Bear Cap that are right up front. And Tyrants with Red Line, love them some Bear Cap, especially if you're also able to slap Hand of Destruction up on them too. That's going to start getting pretty tasty. I could see this going. Looking at this again, we'll get into the pair here in a hot second. I feel like Butcher may be the generalist drop, assuming you don't have guns.
Wild statement.
I know that's weird for me to say. It's dirty, but it could be. So let's scroll up to the other list because this one actually had me scratching my head a little bit. because on its face, it's not too dissimilar. It's Sabreth,
Mm-hmm.
my personal favorite in Orgoth. I love her. She's just a barrel of monkeys full of fun to play. Two nerd art nodes with Mace and Clawed Fist again, so that you can absolutely hit that crit dispel when you've put up Crippling Grasp. Love to see it. One Tyrant, again, nerd 13-point Relentless Charge, Siding Flail, and Claw. A Ravener, always a good splash with her. Again, we see Magnus and Invictus. Yes. One Reaver Commander, one Volcar, again, for same good reasons. Two Nashers. That is interesting. And then two squads of Barragers. That is not too surprising with her. Crippling Grasp is a pretty good debuff. And then again, a squad of War Witches just to make that Warjack engine work.
I have no idea what to make of this list, honestly.
This list is so strange. And it's the same command card spread that we see. Blessing, Careful Recon, Lucky Penny, Old Faithful, and Sapper. This is weird. I've been looking at this list for like the duration of this episode, and I'm still scratching my head.
Yeah.
I'm like, what is it playing into?
Yeah.
And I don't know. Really
because if it was a generalist list, it would have a completely different loadout of units and jacks.
Yes.
And if it was a specialist list, the Tyrant would look completely different.
Agreed.
Like you'd see Belcher and Bolt Thrower on that guy.
Belcher and Bolt Thrower, you could totally see. I could also see some Harpoon and Bolt Thrower, or I could see a little bit more Harpoon janky action. That's pretty fun to play.
Right, because one of the things that's emerged about Sabreth over the life of the faction is, as neat as her Veil 2 cast everything feat is, it actually doesn't go that far, and she's not super great at supporting an entire army.
No.
Magnus and Invictus makes a lot of sense here, but usually when you see Perdition at play, Perdition is being fired off as a extend my melee threat range and give me a massive melee advantage. One of the things that's like sort of come out over that time is Sabreth is only really moving one Perdition target at a time, as opposed to somebody like Shadow Tongue who's like all of it.
Yeah.
And actually, in her case, the strongest use for Perdition, you may use it for melee sometimes, but the strongest use for Perdition is just enabling one Jack to be a terrorist with guns. To make your opponent live in fear of the double gun Tyrant, or even just Bolt Thrower Tyrant, like maybe with Mace, untapping and saying, I'll take everything you love.
Yeah, totally. And also, like, I've even played builds with her where I like the cheapo Harpoon Tyrant. It's, 11 points or something.
Like, because if you're running infantry-centric, it's like Perdition, Walk, Harpoon. Your favorite toy is now mine.
It's now Nasher food. Num, num, num. And that's actually, funny enough, I've run Sabreth Nasher heavy. And that's kind of what I do. I also put in Assault Reavers. I put in Harpoons because the idea is the Nashers themselves are not very defensive. They are offensive, but they have a limited threat range. How do we solve that? We go spearfishing and we bring the food into them. That's how we solve that. And then a cute little Repo 3 card, get them the hell out of the way, and all of a sudden it's Ollie Ollie Oxen free, Nasher's Dogpile, whatever you love. And God, you love to see it. It's so fun. This one is, I don't know, the Nashers are confusing me. I'm stuck on them because there is, aside from not Fog of War, which she has, aside from Windstorm, there's no real defensive tech here for them. There's one shield guard from a Volcar. That's it.
I wonder, looking at this, if the answer isn't, and this is going to sound crazy, the Nashers are ambushing, and the entire game plan is to turn the table, use Perdition on like the Ravener to threaten the overtake beatdown of I'm going to go through everything little that you put in the way that could possibly tie these idiots up, and then use the ambush and move to be able to get into the things you don't want them to get into.
That's interesting that you might theoretically be forcing a refused flank so that they pull away from a side of the board, which you're doing with guns and Magnus and Perdition. They're pulling to another side and having to deal with double Nashers while they're on that side.
Yeah. I'm wondering if the Nashers are meant to ambush in this one, which you don't.
I mean,
see
it doesn't make sense if they're not.
It doesn't. That's the only thing I can think of, and it's strange and it's weird, and I'm kind of excited, and I want to see this played.
Yeah.
Like, this
I'm
is
just trying.
cool.
I'm just trying to imagine having to play into this on like a trench warfare, where now
Oh,
you're
where
trying
flags score for
the
for
flag
double.
score for double. You can push somebody away from that flag and give them minimum investment. You've got the guns if they don't contest it well, and then Nashers come on and just get you points. And if they walk on and just say, "Hey, I score too," and also you can't trivially remove them while the rest of my army is still trying to push you back and fire all cylinders at guns, like how quickly does that win out on scenario by doing something like that?
Interesting.
Yeah.
And also, we do see the two melee threats in the Ravener and the Tyrant, both of which are freaking excellent. With Sabreth and Perdition. So
Mhm.
I don't know. This is a cool list. I am so curious to see what it would play into, because that's the part I'm having the hardest time wrapping my head around where this goes.
Mhm.
But again, I also haven't looked at their team comp, and that could be what the differentiator here is that there may be a couple of armies that they're just because I mean Norway's teams, you never count them out. They're
Yeah.
definitely up to no good here.
Oh no, yeah. To adapt the line from Snatch, a Norwegian doesn't take a dump without a plan. Like the Norwegian players generally, but players like Sphere specifically, like it doesn't make sense to us, but that doesn't mean it doesn't make sense.
That's correct. I know that I'm missing something, so Spare.
Oh my god, he's the only Prime Army player on the team.
Yeah, I was gonna say this is a really weird team. I don't know how I feel about this.
Oh, bizarre.
man.
Like, I think Joe said it best the other day. He said that Norway is just absolutely cooking. They're up to something, and we don't know what, but they're cooking.
Norway Munian is a two-time champion.
Yeah.
If they're fielding this, there's probably something there.
Rule
I
Guard,
will be
Final
following these
Interdiction,
lists
and Crucible
closely.
Guard.
All right,
What is
Cosmo, we
happening?
got to get into yours.
All right, so mine was John McForrester from France.
Is that the technical name?
I mean, you tell me how this is pronounced.
Oh, I'm not French. I can't. I got nothing.
Automatics, something like that.
You didn't say it with you didn't say it with the right amount of disdain for speaking it in English.
So France oh man, if only John was here. John DeMarie could tell us how it's pronounced. Okay, let's get into it. So this is my canonical pair, but not as I would field them. So we're just gonna start with the one that, like, again, I don't know what's going on here, but the guy has made some bold choices that I've considered in the past. So we got Admiral Boomhowler. Okay, great. Off to a wonderful start. Deepborn Dire Troll, Cantankerous Lunker Hammerhead Shark Skull Gauntlet. So returning to my top level takeaway, the absence of crab nets in non-American Grindblood player lists is baffling to me. I mean, this guy is correctly fielding crab nets once we get back down here. Crab nets are such an abusive weapon. It's one of those things, like, it's like deadweight on Kythos. Like, you better watch which models are standing within 2 inches of each other. Otherwise, you might just randomly lose. And every time I see a Dire Troll that's 14 points, it's like, you could save a point, and has the Shark Skull Gauntlet. You could save a point on this composition and upgrade that to a crab net. Here, it's Lunker. He does have Spirit Shaman, so there may be a purpose to the Lunker fin. It does give it Prowl. So that can be a stealthy Dire Troll. It's arm 20. All these things are all right. I would probably shave it differently. Reef Troll. This is also another opportunity to shave 1 point. Ship's Wheel can become Boarding Axe. This guy mostly exists for the matey head. You're counting on him surviving 2 shots. Ship's Wheel, unless you're having him be like a tanky babysitter, probably don't need this.
Yeah.
Anyways, Solo section is where the list gets weird. Booty boss. Okay, it's Boomhowler. Yeah,
Sure.
Fugue Walker,
Uh-huh.
Gregor Boomhowler. Madam Moriarty. Yeah.
Sure.
Sully. Yeah. 6 Fire Guardians.
Why?
Scenario exists. That's it. That's what this is here for.
Wait, so I've tinkered around with 6 Fire Guardians in the past, but it was always as a supplement to a king under Boomhowler. And the reason for that is you play 6 Fire Guardians plus multiple barrier defenses, and you can actually like really bizarrely constrain your opponent's ability to physically move on the table. And with Tactician, your king's just like, it's all open board to me.
I'm calling it right now. The entire point of this is this person looking at it saying scenario exists and I don't want it to. Therefore,
Scenario exists and I don't want it to as long as I'm going second.
like, so they made scenarios and I've been mad ever since.
Yeah, I mean, so I think this is a cool play. I would usually pair it to a king. It's neat. I don't know. So the units is where this list actually loses me, because like the 6 Fire Guardians is actually only 6 points. Like this looks like a lot, but it's actually almost nothing.
Yeah.
Talk about shaving off a point somewhere, though.
Not expensive.
Where the list loses me is the unit section. Fire Spitters. I hate this unit.
I know.
Every Brian Blues player does, except for this guy, apparently.
Wait, so it's curious because he might actually be ambusher maxed or close to it, because he's got 3 boarding parties plus Fire Spitters.
I will say that, boarding parties are, it's kind of like experiencing cancer in real time.
Oh yeah. Yes, 100%. I love inflicting it on my opponents.
3 is a lot.
Yeah.
1 or 2, 2 maybe. 1, oh god, yeah. Every list hit that button all day long.
Mm-hmm.
But 3, not sure.
Yeah. But so I'll say something. Like, I've seen a lot of people try like boarding party and other like single wound defense skews with Boomhowler. It sucks. It doesn't work. It's aggressively bad. So I have to imagine there's another use for this. Boomhowler's actually just focused on making your Marauder crew survive long enough to apply its legendary hitting power. You don't take pigs with her. It doesn't work.
Well, more than 1 unit.
Right.
Always take 1 unit.
Wait. So a funny thing is pig boarding party, for their lack of ability to deal damage, and actually that's my major concern with this army, is its ability to deal damage, because we have the Dire Troll, the Lockabash brothers, and 2 Marauder crew units, and that's where it taps out. For all their faults and how non-virtuous they may be with Boomhowler, a pig boarding party is actually a decent shooting unit, especially with a Coxswain, because their rat value is good enough, their base POW is good enough to seriously menace dorks, and their blast damage POW is exceptional. Plus, they just don't die.
Yeah.
No, they don't.
Fire Spitters have none of those advantages and significantly more cost.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they have prey.
Oh, they have a rule that's really bad for a unit with low power to have. Great. So here's the thing. This list is like even more enigmatic to me than Chris's Sabrith list he picked from Sphere. I don't understand this. There's decisions in it which I think are funky and could be really cool. Like this solo section, this unit section, I'm like, what is going on here? This solo section I actually like. Moving on to the one that was really compelling to me is we have Shadow Tongue. So this is big battle group Shadow Tongue, which I used to run for a really long time. I kind of prefer King Shadow Tongue in the current meta, but big battle group Shadow Tongue can be quite menacing. So we got Chum, great. chum pretty good. You just have to watch him with Shadow Tongue, because Stumbling Drunk can actually turn into a liability for your threat range game if people realize they have the option to just reduce his threat range voluntarily. Deepborn Dire Troll. This is what I was talking about. You make the correct point saving decisions, you get minnow with a crab net. Shadow Tongue low-key actually wants all of his beasts to be minnows because they're just missiles. He doesn't care about their survivability, really. Especially now that Big Pig is brought in line. Crabnet, an amazing weapon. You need rage with Shadow Tongue. Double Virager, which I actually quite like. They're not the hardest hitting thing in the world, but they do like
hit enough.
shocking amounts of damage, and their tongues put your opponent under enormous pressure.
Yep.
Hey,
yo. And then going down the list, we'll just cover units. We'll save the solos because, again, the solos is where you win me. Marauder Crew with Tapper. Okay, great. Sit and hold guy. Oh no, there was a surgeon. I'm sorry, I lied. Oh man. John McForrester. I'm really into some of the spice you're laying down, including the surgeon. Anyways, Marauder Crew with Tapper. This unit loves being supported by a surgeon and revives. Pig Boarding Party. Shadow Tongue likes Boarding Party, especially big battle group Shadow Tongue, because he's emptying out the center of the board with his extreme melee threat ranges. He needs the ability to play the sides without breaking up the integrity of his battle group.
Yep.
Pig Shockers with the Coxswain. I also like. I've started to be interested in experimenting with different unit configurations with Shadow Tongue, particularly pigs. And I really like this unit loadout. There's not a booty boss in here, which I'm not a huge fan of. But getting to the real spice, Fire Guardian, fair. Madame Moriarty, mandatory. Mr. Boggs, losing me a little.
Sure.
4 pig cannon crews. Oh God, I love it. This is
Let's
so
go.
good.
This is so weird.
2 dirges, surgeon.
I love every part of this just because of as soon as I saw 4 cannon crews and 2 dirges, I'm like, I don't play trolls, but you've got me. I'm in. Like, I love every part of it. Those cannon crews do way more work than they should.
Yeah.
They're ridiculous.
So this is a massively underexplored aspect of trolls, which is, in most standard configurations, they have decent guns. Shadow Tongue is one of the best casters in the game and can kind of run whatever he wants. But he has his toolkit is actually really synergistic with ranged offense. He just doesn't have many outlets for it. Pig cannon crews, though, I mean, I've been exploring other avenues, but I love that somebody else has picked this up and run with it. Pig cannon crews are super cheap, and they're range 14, and they're slam guns. Everything I said about the crab net, if these guys get to hit, and one way they ensure they hit is volume, especially with double frogs and double mark targets, and 4 attempts at a ranged slam, this package is terrifying. Like, this is pants-fillingly scary.
Yeah.
And these are...
especially with the caster who can channel through basically anything, because even if these 15-inch plus melee threats aren't backing up the ranged knockdown, certainly 4 offensive spells with boosted damage in 1 turn are.
And not just that, gallows and drags and things like that can start manipulating the battlefield so that those slams start bowling. Like,
especially when one of these pig dirges just goes, I'm gonna run over here just to gallows something sideways, and one of these cannons is like, I'm gonna go forward and take my shot and knock that thing down, and then I'm going to reposition forward.
Yeah, that 7-inch repo, or the 7-inch move with repo, is, I think, huge. But also, because these idiots are only 3 points, this is 100% a model you don't mind throwing away for scenario. If you need to. You don't mind putting it on any objective terrain and just being like, it's going to sit here. Because I can walk out, fire essentially an 17-inch range shot, and then be back in its terrain piece and be like, all right, this is fine. Like,
right. Or if it's like a jack on 2 fronts, that's like, I'm going to go score the scenario zones next turn. And one of the cannon crews is like, I'm going to move to contest this one on my repo, but I'm going to slide just this way and shoot you out of your caster's control area.
I love it. This is my kind of jank right here.
No, yeah. I mean, so like as a player doing like my own explorations, I've been diving down, big battle group Shadow Tongue, which this still is. But a lot more like Marauder crew maximization over the last, 2 years. One of the things that really attracted me to the faction is just the egregious efficiency of the cannon crews, and their egregious efficiency combined with their really high field allowance. So I love to see this. And like honestly, about a week ago, even before I was going to Vegas, I'm like, okay, I'll scroll through the troll list and see how many I hate. And there were some ones that I actually quite liked, but like this one was like, like I'm like Immanuel Kant awakening from my dogmatic slumbers, having read the work of David Hume. Like, this is world changing. Like, I've built more Brine Blood lists over like the last 24 hours, just being inspired by preparing for this episode, than I think I have in like the last 5 months.
Nice.
Yeah, genuinely the only thing I think I don't like about this list is Chum being in there. And he's a great piece. It's just the risk you take with somebody being able to stumbling drunk him around that makes it where it's like, I don't super like that. And yes, you can not IR or whatever the spell is to make it so that he can't. Make it so that he can't.
In big battle group Shadow Tongue, you'd be surprised how much liberty you have with your spell rack, because perdition gets bolted to it every time. It's non-negotiable. You rack perdition every time. But unlike with a king, you look around at your other stuff and like, what do I kind of need this game? It's really situational, and you can afford to rack, we'll band-aid this little defect here with Fortify a lot more than you would think.
All right.
Because his second rack option is so open, because you're just leaning into his core kit plus perdition.
I wonder how much different this would be if I'm gonna get crucified for this. If it was the great old one over Chum, I think I would actually like that a lot more.
I would like it so much less.
Really?
Yeah.
All right, fair enough.
Well, that's interesting. So we're hitting the 2-hour mark. We'll have to pick that up another time, perhaps, as overall list philosophy. And something that's been great about this exercise, one, we've gotten to cover the meta game in a big way, but two, it's been really interesting exploring these other people's armies as like, a kind of psychological projection, like we're getting gateways into one another's souls. So I would love to Jay Beatnik, that comes with about as big a grain of salt as our endorsements of these lists have. Like, Cosma is the #1 Brine Bloods player. I'm happy I made the crawl, but like I think no one in my kingdom recognizes my legitimacy.
So yes, the real question is,
subjects are clamoring for you, O King.
If you become #1, does that make you the new best Andy? Like, do you become the honorary best Andy?
I mean, it's good work if you can get it, I guess. Oh man. All right. Well, yeah, this has been a great window into the soul, and I think worth coming back to, because I think all three of us have very different metagame metagame perspectives, and it's been interesting to take this one as here are some interesting lists that we think are ones to watch, and two, as like our own Rorschach test, to see just how how wild our psychology goes. And I think that's a conversation I'd love to have in the future.
I love it.
Any final thoughts? Well, I guess not final. We've got a few weeks left and maybe can sneak in one or two cheeky discussions. But any closing thoughts for tonight on WTC 2025?
Yeah, I think honestly, like looking across a bunch of these lists, it's cool to see the trends. It's cool to see where the metas are. But, I think more than anything, these lists are showing that there's a lot, even with a more limited list building paradigm in the armies that are being taken as compared to years past. We're still seeing a lot of ingenuity. There's going to be a lot of surprises. And I can't wait also to have looked at several of these lists, maybe a couple in the weeks to come that we look over, and just be totally wrong in how they're played because of just how differently people approach this game. This is the most exciting thing about it for me is just how live and open this field is. I'm loving seeing it. I can't wait to see what happens.
And it's really interesting too with how much like the band of factions being played collapsing in on the new Prime armies. Even with the addition, it's more tightly concentrated in years past. But there's huge amounts of variation within most of these factions.
Yep. I think my takeaway from looking at all of these is the overall game plan of most pairings is pretty easy to figure out. From like a overall perspective of like, okay, you have one really aggressive list and one really kind of defensive, sit back and do stuff list, but the individual choices and exactly how to apply that vary so much from army to army and so much from player to player that it is super interesting to just be like, yeah, it's, one guy's going to go forward and do stuff and the other one's going to play scenario. And suddenly you're looking at it going, oh, this isn't how I expect Shadow Tongue to play scenario. Suddenly you're,
right,
moving so much more of the board around than I'm used to from my own locals. Like the play that's going to happen when you have to adjust for that on the fly, I think is going to be crazy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And I'll just for my personal closeout, I'll actually highlight JRV's comment here. Keith, if you could grab that. America is just dunking on everyone else's list. We've had so here's the thing. We've had a ton of fun commenting on these lists and selected some things that are either enigmatic or surprising or like deadly effective. Like while some of these lists may puzzle us, every pair we've highlighted, we've seen something remarkable in it. And, to take the other meaning too, the concentration of factions this year into the newer Prime models has actually really highlighted one of the things that's always gone on with the WTC, which is when it comes to list composition, you see an emerging difference between the European and North American metagame.
Yep.
When we get to Europe, a lot of their lists look European to them. Mm-hmm. We are essentially setting foot in their metagame, and we look at us and the Australians as well. Like every time the Norte Americanos and the Australians show up, we look like space aliens in their metagame. And like the Americans and the Australians do well, but not like uniformly, like absolutely get wrecked nerd kind of well. There's a lot of variance and there's really appreciable difference in the environments that the games are played in. And it's always really worth meditating on, what are we seeing on the other sides of these Atlantic and Pacific divides? So if we say something's enigmatic, odds are it's still firing on all cylinders across the pond.
For sure. I think the other part of this, just to, I guess, close it out a little bit, is I wish I could remember who I was talking to. Somebody had played a game into Rich Loxham, and his commentary was, basically, you Americans, why are you playing like this? In Europe, we're so much more used to people sitting back and shooting and not taking these risky plays and just kind of like really drawing the game out and being like, okay, we're going to outposition each other. And you guys are just running up the field screaming, and it's like, what? It's working, but what is going on here? And I think that's a huge thing when you're looking at these kind of lists between how like we in the Americas, the Canadians deal with the metagame and the scenario packet versus how a lot of the Europeans do. Is they like to grind it out and play those long games that get to turn 5, 6, 7, whereas a lot of the time we're looking at it and taking, for lack of a better word, kind of the Polish mentality of like, we're going to go up there and you're going to get assassinated, and it's not going to work every time, but it only has to work 3 times.
We are so civilized, yet these Americans, they are so coarse. They charge on bottom of 2.
Basically. And I think that's that's a big, just I don't even want to call it a meta difference. I guess more of just like a game and like
philosophical
mentality difference of
Yeah.
like we play so much more aggressively in these scenarios than it seems like they do, and that is has its good and bad moments, but it throws a lot of people on both sides off.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, well, I mean, that's something for all you brave souls departing from North America. If you're in the audience, go over there, scout it, and see how real the philosophical difference is, and tell us when you're back.
Mhm.
Come back to first place.
Yes,
Come back with first place or don't come back at all.
but then how will we know how coarse and uncivilized we are?
Don't worry, the internet exists. We'll find out.
Anyways, Chris and Ryan, I want to thank you guys for going on this exploration with me and for some excellent commentary. Chat, I want to thank you guys for showing up. Keith, thank you from all your work behind the scenes, and have a good night, everybody. Keith,
Bye, everybody.
hit the button. I'll queen wave until we stop.